One of the more silly, outrageous, outlandish, asinine, insane things I have ever seen in my life. Woo! Why would you take your kids and kidnap them and send them off to a camp in the middle of Utah, out of all places, to be taken care of by strangers, people you don't know, people who say that they're trying to help fix your kid, which is a big problem in itself. I got a whole problem with everybody in this film when it comes to the parents, when it comes to some of the kids, and then when they get to the adult versions, when they get, to the camp counselors, which they conveniently don't show any of them, to the guy in charge, Steve. And I mean, the only people who's actually good in this whole entire documentary is ironically the police. I never thought I'd say that. Wow. Y'all, just when I think I've seen it all, something else just comes and slaps me across the face and be like, wake up. Well, y'all, I have just finished watching. Well, watched it the other day, but I took some time to, collect my thoughts and whatnot about this new show on Netflix that is a top 10 recommendation called Hell Camp Teen Nightmare. And boy, this movie was wild. Now, it was top 10, so I had to check it out. I'm doing the top 10 stuff. This is my first review of doing, Netflix top 10s. We got some still special stuff coming along. But yeah, I was gonna focus on these shows because I wanted to see what's going on and give my take on what's really going on with these films. Because I'm looking outside the lines, outside the box, which is very vital when you watch these things to look at things from every angle possible, even if it's an aside that's definitely opposing to what you was doing in itself. So this film, it had a cool cover photo. That's why I clicked on it. It was one, and it was an hour 30 minutes, so it's not a long watch. It's a pretty simple watch, but it gets a little repetitive after time, and I'm just like have a lot of questions and a lot of things about this film or documentary is just things are just left empty, and you're just left. I've left a lot of questions because you didn't hear from a lot of people, and you got very convoluted and very, you know, eluded answers on everything, and everything was cloudy. Everyone was giving answers, but it was very, very cloudy on everything. So we gonna go through this documentary and film. If you ain't seen it and don't want no spoilers, do not watch this review about or rant review, whatever you want to call it, over the show. This is one of my first ones doing these over an actual documentary. So be patient with a brother and let's get into it. So we get this movie started. The first thing that comes on is Paris Hilton. I was like, Paris Hilton? What is going on? Paris Hilton's on the show? I didn't know what was going on. So she gets on there and then she starts talking about physical and mental abuse when she was 16. And we don't really get too much outside of that. Like, she's probably on the screen for less than 5 minutes, and I was just confused because she was speaking on this. I don't know about Paris Hilton being abused and whatnot at a camp like this. I thought she was always rich and famous. I mean, she's an heir of the Hilton, corporation, the dynasty. So she's always had money. So I was like, why would she, out of all people, end up going to this thing? I thought this was a thing for like just kids that went to that were bad, that just couldn't behave or whatnot. But it was a lot deeper than just that. And so I had to look into this real quick. I'm going to look into this. Paris Hilton comes in here talking about these things. And so I was like, well, Paris Hilton. So I look into it and she did go to one of these camps. She did to several of these camps, actually. Her parents sent her off. They don't show this in the film. This is just what I found out. They ended up kidnapping her in the middle of the night and sending her off to this camp. That's what they do. They kidnap you. The parents hire somebody to kidnap their own kids in the middle of the night, blindfold them, put them in a van, and take them off and on a plane and everything. And they're not told where they're going. They're freaking out. They don't know what's going on. I was like, what? It was just bizarre. Very bizarre. I can't even. I can't even. But yeah, that happened to her, and and the reasoning was because her parents said that, which also isn't in the film. that she was living in New York City at the time. She was about 16 years old, I believe, and she was just not going to class on time. She was getting bad grades. She was out partying. I mean, what do you expect if you have a 16-year-old in New York City and they have as much money as Paris Hilton? Like, come on now, I'll be in the club all night, every night. Why are y'all living in New York City with a family anyways like that, with a young daughter who's very attractive? She's out there getting lit and trying to live her life. That's what teenagers do. They go out, they live their lives. I mean, what do you expect them to do? Just sit at home and study and read all day, especially when they're looking like Paris Hilton? That was dumb in the first place. So her parents do this, and I thought it was like something for broke kids. I didn't know it was all these rich families, but her parents, they don't know what to do with her. They like, oh, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. We don't can't do anything. Well, what do you mean you can't do anything? You're her parents. That's the problem a lot of nowadays is parents need to stop acting like the kid is above them or the kid is in charge. You're the parent. You're supposed to be in charge. You can't let the kid run over you. You're the parent. I don't understand. Like the parents don't know how to give discipline. I mean, it goes not even nowadays. This is back in the day too. Certain parents can't give discipline. They can't put their foot down because they don't want to be mean to the kid. But that's your job, is to be a parent, not their friend. I think a lot of parents have a problem. They want to be their kid's best friend. That's not how it's supposed to work. I ain't got kids, so I'm just speaking from a bipartisan point of view. You can't be your kid's best friend. That's impossible. Like maybe when you get older and you're both of age of maturity, but when your kid's growing up, you cannot possibly be their best friend because you're living two completely different lives. Unless you're hanging out with them every single day and you're with them way more than their actual friends, then okay. I know a couple parents that can have time to do that, but it was just ridiculous. I mean, you find your own ways to discipline your own children, and then you rely on other people to try and discipline them for you. That's not gonna work. Like that's like if I was if I was acting up at home and then my parents said, "Okay, go get a job." And I get no, matter of fact, this is what people do all day. Forget that analogy. This is a new one. I'm acting up at home. My parents send me to school, and I come back acting bad still, and they get mad at the teacher because I'm acting bad in class. Whose fault is that? It's not the teacher's fault because she's giving me bad reports and whatnot. It's the parents' fault because they're not disciplining them at home. These parents want everyone else to be a parent to the kids except them. That makes no sense. You got to discipline the kid. You got to teach them right from wrong. You have to give them these lessons and teach them about life. They can't just rely on teachers or counselors or anyone else to do that for them. This is your child. This is your responsibility. It's just ridiculous at this point. Like already when it started and I saw this, I was like, y'all, I can't. But yeah, y'all, that's how we getting started. Is this Paris Hilton stuff going on? Like I said, she's in New York City. What do you expect the girl to do? And at the same time, if you're being a bad kid, the kids don't know. That's the thing is, kids, we were all 15, 16, 17 at one point, acting dumb, stupid, reckless. We don't like our parents. We hate being at home. We just want to go out and do whatever. We've all been there. So with you being there before, you should have an idea of what that feeling was like. You should have an idea of what they are going through and be able to cope with them and not make imagine what you would have wanted at that age. A little bit of like hands off, but at the same time, don't let them run amok. If they're doing something too crazy, lock it down. You're the parent, lock it down. They're gonna run away. You ain't doing your job right. That starts like at a young age. So if it gets to that point and they run away, look, I don't even know what to say at that point. But we continue. So then the documentary flashes back to 35 years ago, 1989, before I was born. Starts with a girl telling a kidnapping story. They put her on a plane, and then a car goes to this camp where she finds out her parents paid these people to kidnap her and take her to this camp. So this mind blew me as well. These parents are paying bread to have their kids kidnapped and take off to these camp. What is happening, y'all? I mean, look, kidnap me and pay me. I mean, somebody can kidnap me right now and pay me. And guess how much they're paying me? 16 racks at minimum. So these ain't broke kids getting kidnapped. These are rich kids getting kidnapped with rich, affluent families. I'm like, This is what the rich is doing. The rich people want to get kidnapped, their own kids. They want to go dive down in submarines. They want to do all this safari African hunt. Like rich folks are running out of things to do with their money, and this is insane to me. I mean, give me a little bit of change, and I'll figure out something to do with it other than kidnap my own kids and go down in the submarine to see the Titanic. Okay, like come on, y'all. Come on, rich folk. If you rich and watching this, help a brother out, please. My Venmo gonna be in the link below. I'm just saying, come on now. But anyway, yes, these rich folk is tying up their kids and sending them off to these wilderness camps. And so it tucks back to the 80s where the time was changing in the US. The drug and drug abuse epidemic was increasing heavily, and the opioids, all that stuff. A lot of this stuff was increasing, because the police, they was planting this stuff in the ghetto. But this isn't that they ain't got nothing to do with the ghetto because the rich kids was going to the cool kids, the ghetto or whatever, and getting them from them. I mean, that's the only way they're getting these drugs. They're not going to the doctor's office and getting them. They're getting them from these kids, which started because the police started planting these drugs everywhere. But that's a whole nother story. We ain't gonna get into that. That's a whole nother story. And if my voice is bad, I'm getting over some sickness. So pardon me. And then there's parents were sending the kids to the wilderness camps because they were rebelling. So these kids were running, they were running amok. They didn't really get into super detail, but they, alluded to the kids were getting bad grades. They were sneaking out the house. They were cutting class. They were doing drugs. They were doing heroin, like heavy drugs, not just like smoke. Some of the parents like, oh, smoking too much weed, smoking too much weed. I'm like, weed? Y'all sending these kids to camp because they were smoking some weed? Now, I know it's different back then and now. I'm trying to put my mind in the mind of a parent. And, as the parent, for the parent's defense, I'm look at both sides. You're worried about your kid. You have all this money. You're giving your kid everything that they need, from a nice home to live, a great school to go to, a great, neighborhood to live in. You're giving your kid everything, and they're doing all these things to rebel you. You're kind of like, what's going on? I'm giving you everything you want, but you ain't giving me anything. You're acting up in return. I don't know what to do. Well, you can't give kids things, material things, and money and all these things and expect them to act how you want them to act. Kids need love and affection and caring and nurturing. And money can't buy that. Money can't pay for that. You have to put in the work. Enough said. I mean, I used to be a babysitter. I worked with kids from the age of infancy to high school. I was a teacher, camp counselor, swim instructor. I worked with a lot of kids in the past, so I've seen how they develop and whatnot. And I obviously was a kid. So yes, I've worked with children a lot. So I definitely understand. And I used to work with a children's foundation. It was with kids that were in homeless shelter. But anyways, yes, they're getting sent to these camps, which is ridiculous. And then this guy named Steve Cartazano started this camp. They don't really dive too deep into Steve's, like they dive into his upbringing. Like this documentary kind of goes a lot, like flashback here, back to regular time, flashback here. It's just a little all over the place for me. But parents, they sign away their parental rights when they send these kids off, which is why are you signing off your parental rights to strangers? That makes zero sense. So they can literally do what they want to do with these kids and nothing bad can happen. That's a reason why they were able to get away with it, I think, for while as far as they did, which is crazy. I mean, what kind of parent would sign off their parental rights? But I digress. Then when the kids get there, the kids get sent to this. There's all these camps all over the country and whatnot, and they're mostly focusing on this Utah camp in the middle of this Utah mountains and deserts. I didn't even know Utah had deserts. Like, who would have thought? But yeah, they take them on this 500-mile walk. I think that's a little exaggerated. 500 miles? No, I don't believe that for a second, Coach. They put a little hot sauce on the chicken on that one. But yes, they go on long walks, and that's what they tell them. They live in these very dire, horrible living conditions in these basic looking like Native American camps, like where they don't really have like a house foundation. They're sleeping outside in tents. They're living off the land. They're killing animals to eat and survive. And then the normal shelter that they do have is very abysmal. It looks like the Pilgrims got off the Mayflower and built a little wooden houses. That's what it looking like, to be honest with you. it was looking bleak for these kids. I'm just saying, it wasn't looking good. I mean, there was a reason ain't no black kids at this camp, or else there would have been a different kind of story, coach. There was no black kids and parents in the making of this documentary, just to note that out. But yeah. So then we meet Lance Horsechair Jagger. He's the field director of this place called The Challenger. That's what they're calling this camp. And what their goal was, they were trying to make the kids more positive people. They wanted to instill fear in these kids. And basically by putting them through the hardships, they're kind of like a Marine camp, but they have Marine camps. I've seen those before where they send the kids off to this boot camp and they get them right together. They're real hard. And my parents, my dad almost sent me one because I wasn't a bad kid, but he was in the military, so he just wanted that discipline. But he already gave it to me at home, so I didn't need to go to a camp for none of that. Maybe my brother did, but that's him, not me. But no, I did not go to I've heard of these camps before, the military ones, but those were free, I believe. I don't they were very cheap or free. I don't know, but I've definitely heard of those, and actually, they're actually run by people that's in the military, so they're legit. They're in like an army base and doing all this stuff, the PTs, getting up early, eating the MREs, the whole nine. So yeah, basically boot camp for them. But this is not boot camp. This is the Challenger camp in Utah. Oh, God. Whew. Anyways, yeah. So Lance and Steve are the two people kind of in charge. Mostly Steve, Cartesano, and Lance. Horsechair Jagger, weird name. They didn't really get into that, but yeah, they were both in the Air Force, so they did have military experience in being in the armed forces and whatnot. So they kind of had a disciplinary mindset to them, which I don't mind. I understood that. I was like, okay, these guys are legit. Excuse me. And so this is a 63. They called it a 63-day program with 3 different sections. They took the kids in that were manipulators and took advantage of the system, aka spoiled brats. So, these kids were all rich, spoiled, did what they wanted, didn't listen to their parents, said I'm gonna do what I want. And they tried to mold these kids who had living this kind of lifestyle, this certain lifestyle, into something completely opposite that they've never been exposed to before. And they think that's gonna mold them like that when there's no major incentive to do so, except they're putting them through torture. They're like, oh, okay, I can't do it anymore, go home. And then they act the same way they were doing before. I mean, these kids aren't stupid. I get the message and the mission, but it was just the asinine thought process to think that they could really change these kids just by doing these horrific things, because they'll just make more hate in their heart. They'll hate their parents for sending them off. They'll hate these people that was taking care of them. They'll hate everything, and they'll go through trauma because of it. So you're going to traumatize your kids to teach them a lesson instead of just teaching them the lessons and having them make the mistakes. And kids will eventually grow out of things, but you got to just do what you got to do as a parent. That's the job of being a parent. I ain't gonna get back into it. I'm sorry, I keep rambling about this, but I'm gonna try and keep moving. So yes, they take advantage of the system, and they're spoiled brats, the kids that go in there. So they eventually, like I said earlier, kill live animals. They're living off the land, tracking things, just doing some GI Joe stuff up in this camp. And it's basically teaching these kids how to be Pokemon trainers. It sounds like the kids, they shows the positivity at the beginning. The kids seem to learn a lot about themselves when they go to this camp, and it was good for them. A lot of these kids say that they were happy they went. It changed their life, and they're way better because of it. And it's mostly young men at this camp, I've noticed. There's some women, there's some young girls, but it's mostly young men. And yeah, some kids go in there and they kind of go through this traumatizing experience, and they realize how good they had it, and they see how bad it could be, I guess. And I understand that. I 100% understand that. We've all kind of been somewhere where we don't want to be, and we are more appreciative of things in life, little things in life, and what we're blessed with. That's very important. And those kids who learn that, amen. And hopefully they went back home and wasn't acting up no more. But yes, one kid they mentioned first, Matthew. He was over this camp. He got there. And they show him as an adult too in this film. He's over this camp. He's like, look, coach, I don't know what y'all trying to do to me here, but I ain't about to do nothing y'all about to tell me. I'm gonna kick my feet up and chill. I'm gonna be like Clifford the Big Red Dog in my kennel. I ain't doing nothing until I'm ready to. And y'all ain't about to make me do nothing up in this mud. And they're like, we ain't playing that, Matthew. So one morning, he doesn't want to get up. And he's like, I ain't leaving this bed, coach. I'm chilling. What y'all gonna do about it? And then they're like, all right, this is what we gonna do. And they smack him. Or they hit him, I guess. They say he gets hit. And then they're like, all right, you want to get up now? He's like, nope, I ain't getting up. He's like, all right, bet. So they get about 4 of these counselors and they hog tie this man. Well, they don't hog tie him. They tie his feet together and they tie his feet and hands together, I believe. And then they start dragging him, just like pulling him like this. And they drag him through this desert for miles and miles and miles and miles. And every like 10 or 20, 30, 40 feet, they stop and say, you want to walk now? And he keeps saying no. So they keep dragging him. They dragged him for so many miles, y'all. They showed pictures of his back. It looked toe up to the flow up. I mean, it looked pretty bad because I don't know if he had a shirt or not on, but even if he did, you're getting dragged on the dirt and the gravel. That's going to tear up your back real bad. I mean, the cameras back then weren't that great, but you can see the damage it did to this man's poor back. He better than me because I would have got up. But yeah, they said he got emaciated from being dragged to the desert and he was continuously abused by the staff members. Now, one thing that they don't show through this whole entire thing is they don't really get to show any of the staff members. They show the 2 people, Steve and Lance, horse chair, whatever, that were in charge, but they don't show any of the staff members, like any of the counselors, which I was I had my suspicions about. I was wondering why can't y'all get one of these council members? Were they locked up? Are they dead? Are they in, like, I don't know what's going on. So I looked on YouTube too. I couldn't find anything from these staff members. If you can find something, put the link below because I'm interested to see what they got to say about this because they're the only missing piece that I really didn't get to hear from. Everybody else I heard from for the most part, but I need to hear that piece and why they did these things and how much they were getting paid. Because this math ain't math, and why would you do this? Why would you do this? Now it's the 80s and 90s, like people doing what the hell they wanted back in the days. No cameras, no social media. You could get away with a lot of stuff, especially if you ain't black or brown. But yeah, they were getting dragged up. He was getting dragged up, and it was pretty bad. So the thing is, Lance, so he found out about this because there was a report sent out to him and he was pissed. So he's like, this is not what we signing up these kids to do. We are not trying to torture these kids in this manner. We're trying to get their head straight, but we're not trying to, drag them through the mud and the dirt. So, and he said he was okay with light forms of discipline like spanking and whatnot, but nothing over a certain line. Yeah, he's old school and that's what he says. And if people don't like what he has to, his methods, then so be it. Kick rocks. I understand that. I'm kind of old school discipline too. I'm not going to just let you do what you want to do. If you need a little physical discipline, that helps and goes a long way. I got spanked once and I learned my lesson. That's it. And if you don't ever, you don't have any repercussions for your actions and you're going to continue doing what the hell you want to do. So I ain't going to say, tie your kids up and drag them through the dirt, but do something. They got to learn a lesson somehow. If verbal things ain't working, maybe just a little smack on the booty going to help me. But yes, soon as Matthew's mother heard this, she came and picked him up. And once she saw his injury, she was shook and like, I'm out of here. And then they start talking about how much these camp costs. I alluded to earlier, $16,000 for a camp. I mean, that's what some people was living on back in the day. $16,000 for this 2-month camp. Well, these kids eventually stayed longer. So I think it was 63 days. So I'm assuming it was $16,000 for every 2.5 months. Well, a little over 2 months. So some kids stayed for this for almost like a year or two. Like you guys paid $100,000 sometimes a year for this. I mean, like I said, y'all, this show is crazy. Yeah, yes, Matthew's mom came and picked him up and took him home. So Steve, charging $16,000 per kid for 2 months. Let's do the math here, y'all. We're gonna do some math here. If you charge $16,000 for 2 months for a whole year, that's almost $100,000 per kid if they stay for a year. 100,000, you're making $100,000 off basically one kid per year. That is insane. And these are rich folks, so they might be giving tips too. This dude, Steve, was racking in the dough. I mean, looking at the money, that's not a bad business venture. This man was scamming these folks, scamming. And he wasn't even at the camp working as a counselor. He would show up a little bit and then he'd leave. This man was chilling. He bought his family a nice house, a Lambo, lavish things. They was living like the Clintons. They was living like Trump. They was kicking it, y'all. I mean, and his wife comes on here and she says a lot of money was coming in, but a lot of money was going out. And they lived a nice lifestyle in Utah as well. And the business seemed to be a success. I mean, think of it. If you have 10 kids, just 10 kids, which they have way more than 10 kids in this camp, they're staying for a year. That's $1 million in 1 year. Yeah. What is going on? This is insane to me, y'all. This is insane. Wow. That's all I can say is wow. But yeah, their family is kicking it. So Steve has a wife and 3 kids. 2 kids? 2 kids. I could be wrong. 2 kids. And so they fast forward to June 27, 1990. They said a female was en route to the hospital. This girl who was at the camp was in very bad shape. And Steve and Lance even came down to see what the hell was going on. And once they got there, they didn't. So this is also too about this girl. They didn't really. This girl's name is Kristen Chase, and they said she was climbing up the mountain, and it was like a steep mountain. I guess they were climbing for miles and miles, and she was kind of dehydrated, and then she passed out, and then she died. She died. Woo! Talk about a PR crisis. R.I.P. Kristen. Yeah. This is the first report they've had of somebody dying at the camp. I mean, you're doing these mountain hikes with kids who are drug addicts. You think they can climb up a mountain, let alone like 10 flights of stairs? 10 flights of stairs, let alone a mountain. I mean, these kids are not in shape to be doing all that. This is not the Olympics trials. This is not, Mount Everest that we're training to go up to take care of business. These are kids who literally chill out and do what the hell they want and drink, party, smoke, everything. And they have no responsibilities. And they're definitely not hitting the gym. Hit the gym, y'all. It's almost 2024. Make sure y'all hitting that gym. But yeah, she passed away tragically. And they see the mom. So the mom is on this news channel. And she's actually one of the people that's being interviewed in this documentary. And so, which was also kind of condescending, was the mom and I think the mom's son was looking through this photo album of the daughter. And she was like, oh, she's really sweet. And she was really sweet and rebellious. And she was just having a hard time. And she didn't know what to do. Well, if she was only having a hard time and sweet, then why did you send her to this camp? That makes no sense. That's on you, mom. That's on you. Why are you doing that? That's your daughter. And you talking all this. It's easy to speak highly on somebody when something's happened. But when it's going on in the moment, are you saying these things? No. So that's on you. Unfortunately, her blood is on the mother's hands. She said she was this sweet girl. She just didn't know what to do. Then why didn't you help her out? Why? And if you couldn't help her out, then you need to figure out things. This is your daughter. This is your responsibility. So I put the blame on the mom because of that. I don't care what nobody said because of that. That's the mom's fault. And it's the camp's fault too. It's the camp's fault too. But more blame goes to the mom for sending her to this crazy camp, but she knew nothing about. She said she saw a brochure and look nice. Let me send her here. Because I don't want to do. I'm too busy. I'm so busy. Like my husband works all day and I'm just at home. Like I have no time. And we're in the 80s too, when there's no cell phones. There's really no computers. There's no social media. There's not really as many distractions. Yeah, you're cooking and cleaning and doing all these other things, sure. But you're a stay-at-home mom with a rich husband and there's a reason there ain't no black folk in this film, y'all. Anyways, Yes, we get soon pan to, Steve Cartesano getting charged with negligence homicide. Whew. If he lost if he lost, he would have left a young mother with 4 children. So he has 4 kids. I'm tripping. I don't know why I said 2. He has 4 kids, and he soon got charged with 9 counts of child abuse. So all these kids, once his girl died, all these kids started coming out saying, "Ah, this happened," which I believe them. Like, definitely I believe these kids and saying these things happen. I mean, it sounds sketchy as it is, getting kidnapped, and that's abuse right there, getting kidnapped out of your own house, and there's not being a police charge on that. Like, I don't get it. I don't see how they would get away with this. But soon the program was shut down, and the wife of Steve is just, like she's distressed. She's like, "Well, I had to go back and work at Sears." Sears was a good place, y'all. People slept on Sears. I miss Sears. You know, not the best job from a stay-at-home mom, but hey, it is what it is, girl. Get your butt to work. So the report of the girl dying is that she was forced to hike in extreme heat for hours without water. But as the court trial went on, Steve soon pled not guilty. Wow. That's what happens when you got lawyers, that you got friends in high places and you got that moolah. I mean, you can get out of anything. I mean, look at OJ. I mean, look at other folks who I ain't gonna name, who friends with folks and or they got money. They can get out of whatever they want. And he had that money at the time. So he was able to pay. That's where all their money went. And she had to go to work because they had to pay all these lawyer fees. And his lavish lifestyle too. So multitude of things. I mean, that's the same thing that happened to Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson has so much money coming in, but his lawyer fees and because of all his debacles and whatnot, they kind of, put him in debt, heavy, 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 heavy debt. So lawyers ain't cheap, as we all know. So Steve's wife soon said she wanted him to quit doing the youth programs and just leave it alone and get a normal life. And we can have a normal, happy family. But he said, "Nah, girl, I ain't doing that. I'm for the streets." So they soon tell Steve's upbringing a little bit. He was given up by his mother and father at a very young age, and then was with an adoptive family. But then soon, I think at the age of 12 or 13, he was taken back by his original family, mother and father, which is crazy. That's a lot for him to go a child to go through. Like, that's a lot. And it said his mother was killed by heroin when she was 17, and his father was abusive. So this dude, Steve, I feel for this man, to a degree. I feel for him on the extent of like his childhood. Whenever you go through a child, he has his own childhood trauma, and that can last with you through for the rest of your life if you don't talk about it with people, if you don't find a ways to get past it and move on from it, and don't let it cripple you to a point of that being kind of a disability in itself. We all have our own types of trauma, whether it be small, where we got scared of the dark, or something big where our mother died because of, like, this guy died because of heroin. And so that leaves a lasting impact. Child trauma is something that, it's scarring. As children, you don't know how to deal with things. You're not taught how to deal with these things. It's not taught in school. You're not taught really how to deal with it at home unless you really have someone that knows what they're going through, or siblings or something like that. There's no way to really kind of do this. And so he was put in a tough situation at a very, very young age, and he had to kind of get it out the mud because his home life was a wreck. I mean, it was a mess to say the least. Whew, the little piggy style messy. But since soon he was 18, 19, he joined the Air Force, and he said that would saved his life, which, I mean, the military, so why wouldn't these other kids join the military? But he was trying to make his bag, so I know why he did the camp. But yes, the military definitely helped him out in his whole life and gave him that stability that he never really had as a kid. And so, yeah, they panned back to Steve winning the court case, but he said, like, "Look, I won the case, y'all. Let's get this new cramp on him popping. We got to make this bag back. You know what I mean? I'm for the streets." And so, yes, in 70s and 80s, they also referenced, smoking pot was a big deal. Everyone was doing it. It was the hot new craze. It was like the TikTok of today. Smoking pot was popping, and if you wasn't doing it, you was a lame. Just like if you didn't have a TikTok today in high school, you probably getting made fun of, I think. Something like that. And yeah, so he started a new campaign program called Healthcare America, new camp after he got acquitted. Good cover up from the challenger. Just put America behind something. People gonna fall for it, at least in America. Which was putting kids. So this new camp had these kids, instead of going to the desert in Utah, let's get on a boat and let's go to these islands in the Caribbean or the Caribbean. I'm like, yo. Oh my gosh. I just This dude is like a evil genius. He's like Mojo Jojo off the Powerpuff Girls. He's thinking of all these new schemes and plots and plans to do when the last one don't work and he gets sent to jail and he come back out. He got a whole brand new plan ready to take over the world. This man is look, I'll give him that he's creative. He might be a genius because I never would have thought of something like this. I mean, he's like, look, if you can't find me on the land, you gonna catch me in the water. I'm on my Pokemon adventure, player. And I'm the gym battle leader. I'm the gym leader, but I'm the gym leader that's moving from base to or from city to city. You gotta find me. He's like the rare Pokemon where you gotta search all over the map and you're trying to find it in all these different grasses, but it keeps on moving around all over the map. I know y'all remember that if you know what I'm talking about. Those are impossible to catch. And the one time you find it, it flees from you. That's what he's like. So this dude he had his plan ready to go. So he's charging more for this program now. Now he's charging 30 racks because he's like, look, we taking them on boats. We teach them how to be sailors. We putting them, this man, he ain't stopping until he get that bag. But yes, he was able to attract big time families such as the Rockefellers, governors' families, powerful people, you know, in sports and politics, mostly politics, and business, get their kids to come down here. Now they didn't really get into detail of how he met all these people. I don't know how he did that. Maybe something with the Air Force and whatnot. I couldn't really find how he met them. That's another thing I got to look up. But yeah, he was doing his thing, man. He was out there hustling. He was in the streets, man. That's what you got to do, man. Steve, he might have been, might have had a fucked up mind, but he was in the streets hustling. I he was in them streets hustling. I need to learn from how to do that to meet all these rich people. And so soon we meet this guy named Adam. He joins the camp. His parents were so desperate and they decided to put him in the camp. Adam said himself he needed some guidance in his life. And Adam says the program changed everything in his life. Footage they show Adam in this camp, which is really heartfelt. He's in this camp, and then all of a sudden this grown man comes up behind him, and it's his father, and he sees him, and they give this real embracive hug, and it's a really heartfelt, touching moment because it's like, oh, like I haven't seen my dad in forever, and it's kind of emotional. It's very, very emotional, and they have a long, touching moment, and that's when Adam leaves the camp. But then soon, when Adam gets back home, his dad says within 7 to 10 days, he started doing the same things he was doing before he went to the camp. That just goes to show you, y'all, this camp ain't gonna change the kids if they don't want to change. And you need to have your own set of things at home to do that. Because if they're not gonna listen to you, you think they're gonna listen to another adult and really change things? You have to be the change that they need. Yeah, they will. There are other things like sports help kids get kids together. The military, of course, there's other things and other adults that can help it. But you have to start at home, man. Or it won't even get to that point. You got to start at home. And then it pans to Adam and his dad and real life today talking. And Adam's dad says maybe he should have left him there for the rest of his life. I was like, damn, that's cool. That was cold, Adam's dad. That was messed up. You shouldn't have said that because then he looked at him with this crazy look like, you just said that on national television. His dad stood on that, sticking to it. So yes, the camp goes on more months at a time, and then when he's on this island, they're moving. The feds are catching on, and they're trying to, they're getting more reports of child abuse and whatnot. So they're after them, but then they're jumping from island to island to island to island, all like Dominican Republic, Haiti, Puerto Rico, every other island you could think of. They just going all over the place. These kids are lost, dazed, and confused. They're like, this is not the Pokemon adventure we thought we were signing up for. You got us doing. What's that? What is it called? It's the Pokemon thing where they're going from the islands. I can't remember the name of it, but they're going from different islands to islands instead of like the Hoto Johto League. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, Steve gets caught up with the feds, once again, and then his camp gets shut down again. Duh. And his family was suffering heavily because they stopped receiving money. This man's not even really there with his family at all. You see footage of his kids, like in his mother and his wife saying, "Oh, like Merry Christmas. I hope you're doing good." And the kids miss. I'm like, you guys, you're not even spending time with your family on Christmas. You're too busy worrying about this stupid camp because he wants the bag and doing God knows what else. They don't really get into his personal life outside of that too much. But it's just this dude got his priorities all messed up. I mean, his kids are little, like children. So they soon get to Steve's son. They talk about him a little bit. Son, his name is David, and he said he was shy. And when he turned 12 years old, he turned to drinking and heavy drugs. 12? Sheesh. I wonder how that got into the play. You know, his son probably saw these camps and all these other kids were doing, and he's hanging all these other rich kids and whatnot. And what do you think the rich kids are doing with his son when his daddy ain't around? Doing the same thing he didn't want the other kids to be doing. But I don't know. I want to know where Steve was this whole time. Steve's unfortunately passed away. So we don't get his side of the story, but he's not at the camp helping these kids out. He's not at home. Where is he at? What is he doing? I don't know. But yes, so Steve starts this other new camp in Samoa, which is like northeast, west of Hawaii, I believe. I don't know, some island in the near Hawaii. And soon Steve kidnaps gets people to kidnap his own son and send him to this camp. Just when you thought it was not gonna get no crazier. Kidnaps your own child. Some parents. Some parent he is. Lost all credibility after that. So then we get to this new guy at this camp, this other guy at this camp called Kurt. And Kurt said his family sold their house so they can afford for him to go to the camp. He said, "You got to go to this camp. We gonna live outside in the homeless shelter, but as long as you get your act together and we won't do it ourselves, you go to this camp." Everyone, like I said, everyone in this whole documentary is problematic, y'all. Everyone. When it came to the parents selling the house, to the kids, I won't put the kids too much at fault because they're kids, but you see your family going through this thing. I mean, maybe it's a culture thing, but I saw my parents going through some things. I'm gonna try and make their life easier, you know. I see, sometimes money issues. I'm not gonna ask them for money to buy me anything extra crazy, but cultural differences maybe. But yes, this camp was expensive as well, and I'm assuming his son went there for free. I can't imagine he's paying his son to go there. And said there was notes on this camp saying the kids were living like animals. They were emaciated, they had bad bud bites. It was looking peak bleak and everything else. It was bad, y'all. I mean, they were living like Mowgli and Tarzan. And so once they panned this girl, her name is Amber, and this girl Amber has a story she tells where she gets hog-tied, and that's where your hands and your feet, your ankles and your wrists are tied together, and you're just sitting there. You can't move. And the kids did that as a joke, which is ridiculous. And because they said she was being bad and whatnot, and the counselors kind of coerced the kids to do it. It wasn't a counselor that did it, it was the kids. And so the counselors weren't at fault for this one, I guess, which is just bullying. I don't know. It was a mess, y'all. Like I said, this whole thing's a mess. And Kurt is supposed to be Amber's friend, who also I mentioned, whose parents sold his house, and he didn't help her out at all. He kind of said, he kind of was one of those kids who was like, like laughing on the side, but this is his friend. He needs to stick up for his friend, which she was pissed about. And then Amber also came out and said that she got sexually abused on the island as well. Craziness, y'all. Craziness. And eventually Steve's business gets caught up again. Who would have thought? Black SUVs turn up to the beach where the children were. And it's the American Embassy. They mean business, y'all. If you don't know what the American Embassy is, look it up. They ain't playing with you. If they come to your house, it might be game over. Turn off the Game Boy and pack up your things. And the kids went home. So Steve was fooling people to sign up to these camps. He made like these brochures that looked like it was real nice summer camp, happy smiley sun on there, Teletubby style. Come to the camp and you can have a great time. We're getting together. If they're bad, we'll turn them great at the end. People fell for this. No research. Like the thing is, back in the day, they couldn't do the research like they can do today. So negligence on the parents still, yes, but I could see how people back in the day would get fooled by something like this. I could see how it happened. I'm not giving them a pass, but I can see how they got fooled. And so we get to Steve's daughter. She was soon turned of age, 13, 14, started acting up, stealing, using heroin, overdosing, everything. And She got arrested one time, and her mom was so mad that she left her in jail. 'Cause she said, "Look, we can't send you to this camp, but we gonna send you to the jail camp." And so Katie was, really hurt by that. And yeah, it kind of wraps up with, David, they selling David, Steve's son, currently being in prison for another 3 years after today, I guess. And Steve had colon cancer, and he passed away about 4 years ago, so he was not able to do the documentary. And people say he wasn't a bad human being, but he just got caught up in the sauce, caught up and lost in the sauce, essentially. Which I understand. I see that. He doesn't seem like a horrible guy or anything like that. He didn't seem evil. It was not like this dude was the Joker or something like that. He just seemed like he was trying to do something to help his family out. Got caught up in a very bad practice of things and wasn't aware. Didn't want to ultimately look like he didn't want to sacrifice the money to help to really fix what the problem was going on. And he saw the money that was coming in, and this is just my take. He saw the money that was coming in, and he's like, "Look, we just got to keep doing this, man. It's working. It's helping my family out. I'm doing whatever I'm doing. I hope these kids turn well." Like, I think his intention and originally was good about helping the kids out because of his kind of upbringing, but the way it went about it was all wrong. He hired the wrong people. He let them just get away with too much stuff, and that's what happened to it. And eventually what comes out, which is strange, is after Steve passes, this girl comes out and says he sexually molested her after he's dead already. Everyone in the show is crazy as hell. Everyone in the show is crazy as hell. So yeah, that's my take on Hell Camp, the teen nightmare on Netflix. It's an interesting, y'all. I'd give it about a 6 out of 10. It's not my favorite thing I've watched. There's a lot of plot holes and storylines that are missing. I definitely think that there's a huge problem going on with these camps. I didn't really know about them because I don't know anyone that's ever done it or even heard much about it until this thing. I've heard of behavioral camps, like, we're gonna send you here for a week, but it's in like your hometown in behavioral schools because I taught at one once. But you know, rich people, if you got some money like that, just think. Just sit the money. I know you got money and you want to just do whatever you want with it. You get a little lost, like, oh, we got the money, just do it. If people get some money, like, oh, let's just do some dumb stuff. Let's go bet on this game. Let's go do this. Just chill and think about things logically for a second. Just think about things for a second and do a little research and save yourself some bread at the same time, y'all. Appreciate you joining me for this little rant I had about the show and review. Let me know what you think about the show or what you think about anything I said. You think I'm right about some things? You think I'm wrong about some things? You know, like, comment, subscribe below, and let me know what else you might want me to give my 2 cents about and review. Because there's a lot of things that we got to go through and talk about, y'all. But I appreciate you joining me for this. Till next time, y'all, we out here. Go Mizzou. Peace and bless.